When we start discussing cost center agile, we really have a very different context in which we begin to monitor our learning curve disadvantages, information, and risk, because we're continuously investing and we're actually attempting to track what we learn, both as a learning organization that gets better at what they do in terms of operational effectiveness, but even as we begin to start to address whether or not we appropriately account for innovation as it happens. The first thing that we notice is that rather than letting the project budget control cost, we're now using operating expense because we probably have our own teams that are central to a product portion of the organization. Now, cost center agile is things like Scrum or Kanban at the team level. I call it that because for the most part, we're trying to increase responsiveness to an internal signal within the enterprise from the business. When we look at Scrum or Kanban as a form of agility in which we can respond to the signals within the enterprise faster for better information about our own product development cycle, at that point we do see some significant changes, most of them intentional. Batch size gets driven down because there is a real sense of a cost of delay. And even if you're not actually tracking it, you create a more of a sense of urgency by a cadence of checking back in. Over here in stage gate waterfall, it potentially could have been the case that no one really knew what you were doing for a long period of time as you completed one layer of an application after another. It's very critical in both Kanban and in Scrum that you show your work as it's in progress and that the final product is the only indication of the value you've created. So there's a real sense of urgency to not delay the time it takes to show something to someone. And that is what finally creates a very clear U-curve optimization for the total cost curve. Finally, with this sharp increase, we can see that we need to reduce batch size. The other thing is that as we continue to learn as a learning organization, in Scrum or Kanban, the transaction costs and the economies of scale associated with them start to become less mythical and more well-known. Our learning curve advantages begin to increase. And you can see that once we do understand this, it evens out and tapers off. There's a point of diminishing returns to having everything done at once in a specific piece of the cycle. And that's mostly the Scrum Master's job or other change agents' role to make things more effective by getting people to coordinate better rather than disappearing into a silo. Although cost center agile is extremely strong when it comes to a team that is controlled in size, where you have continuous investment for 10 to 15 people that cover everything you need for planning, design, delivery, and maintenance of a product, it's very effective at that. As you scale up from this, of course, there are some very real problems that you face with these types of systems. At scale, within an enterprise, especially one that is extremely hierarchical and potentially bureaucratic, what we find is that this just isn't good enough. You're still just checking for internal signals of quality and information asymmetry. What you're not doing is actually checking the market. You're not necessarily looking at canary analysis, product metrics, completion rates to do the things you need to do. And especially if our goal in the culture of innovation is to have the groups of people that create products feel a true sense of ownership and being able to reach out to the market directly and help someone achieve their goals through a solution, we're definitely missing the mark. In a very large enterprise, it could be handed down all the way from the CEO to a lowly product owner who knows very little about the complete business context and has almost no direct interaction with the real customers. That is always the real problem with cost center Agile in an enterprise. Now, the other problem is that there's coordination issues. The more teams we add that work in this way, the more likely it is that we run the risk of not knowing what each team is doing, not understanding if they're doing duplicate effort, and not really controlling where this continuous investment of money is going. This also results in a lot of blame. Over here, it was easy to blame the project manager exclusively for things, or if you were using a vendor, to blame the vendor. And you very frequently had some relatively formal contractual obligations that helped control this. When you move into cost center agility, because you're so focused on attaining that land of rainbows and unicorns, some people forget the need to formalize a few things here and there. So very frequently, when the product fails, it means the team failed. That is why eventually any enterprise needs to move from core Scrum at the cost center Agile level into a better way of working at scale.